Hi everybody and welcome to the Disney Q&A. This is the series in which you guys throw all sorts of Disney questions my way, whether it's about the parks or the movies or the company or the history, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. And while doing that, I explore MC Magic, the 1-to-1 scale recreation of Disney World in the game of Minecraft. We're going to walk around New Epcot today while I answer some awesome questions. And we've got some good ones this week, so let's dive right in. I'm going to start off with a softball by Noah Kyle, who asks, will you be getting Battlefront 3? I think it'd be awesome to see your reaction and experience doing some gameplay of it. I'm actually really torn on this. On one hand, the Star Wars fan in me says to get it day one. The YouTuber in me says to get it day one so that I can make videos and show you guys the game. However, the gamer side of me is a little weary when it comes to EA games, especially DICE. Battlefield has had some rocky launches, and I believe this is the same team that's been working on those, so I don't know if it might be safer to wait for reviews first. I grew up, I had played Battlefield 1 or Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2, but I don't have the same reverence for them, I think, as a lot of gamers online right now, so I'm not like looking forward to it as much as I think a lot of people on the internet. I'm an old school. I love Battlefield 1942, which I think maybe didn't create that genre, but sort of brought it to the forefront. And every game we see after it seems to remove from that equation a little bit, and it makes me a little sour. So I'm not sure yet. I've got time to figure it out. There's gonna be a lot of games out at that time, but it'll be interesting because I think it's very much going to set the tone of what EA and Lucasfilm's partnership is going to be like going forward, because I think their deal is like for 10 years or something. So that's a lot of Star Wars games they're going to be making, and hopefully this sets the right tone and is, relatively bug-free and launches smoothly and is a well-designed game. I hope. That's my hope. Next question comes from Copycat705, who has two questions. What do you think of Colin Trevorrow, I hope I'm pronouncing that, directing Star Wars Episode 9? Although Jurassic World was received generally well, it is criticized for its poor writing and overuse of CGI, something that the new trilogy is trying to steer away from. My second question is, why does Disney announce projects so early? For instance, they announced Avatar Land in 2011, yet they didn't start construction until 2014. And Star Wars was just recently announced, Star Wars Land, I guess. Yet construction isn't going to start until 2017. This isn't about their actual construction timeline, just the amount of time it takes from announcement to groundbreaking. So for your first question, I think it'll be okay. I haven't seen Jurassic World yet, so I can't comment on that film. I did see the movie he made before that, Safety Not Guaranteed, and I really liked it. And I don't think it overused CGI, that movie. I think the acting was good. It was a very different style of film from Jurassic World, which gives me hope, because what I would be more worried about is them giving it to a director who can only do one type of movie. To show a director with a little bit of range is a lot more promising to me. And on top of that, you have to remember that this isn't going to be an auteur piece. It's not the sort of film where he's going to have complete control and get final cut, and that'll be that. Like the Marvel movies, this has a much bigger picture in mind. And so if it comes to something like CGI and we see that, Episode 7 does spectacularly well because of the lack of CGI, or less CGI than the prequels, then it wouldn't be a stretch to see the heads over at Lucasfilm sort of enforce that upon him for Episode 9. So I'm not worried about it yet. I mean, we haven't technically kicked off the new trilogy, so it's hard for me to get nervous about the end of that trilogy. That said, I'm a little bummed because I had predicted 3 directors for this trilogy, and I got 2 of the 3 correct. I had predicted J.J. Abrams. I had predicted Rian Johnson, who's doing the Episode 8, and then I had predicted Joss Whedon, and of course, there's no Joss involved. But wouldn't it be great? In my ideal situation, they would move Rian to directing Episode 9 and give Joss Episode 8, and that would be the perfect trilogy for me. But I imagine he's done with movies like that. As for your second question, I think the answer is more boring than you might want it to be, which is, I think it's more of a business thing. I think it's partially for shareholders to show shareholders that they have this long-term vision in mind, a little bit to drum up interest, but I think largely to drum up more so confidence in Disney stock. Because it's one thing to say, hey, we're Disney, we've got plans for the next 2 quarters and it's going to be great. But it's a much different game to say, hey, we've got plans for the next 5 years and it's going to be great. Because that's the sort of thing that'll convince people to buy Disney stock far more than, we've got a new show coming, next fall or something like that. I think part of it's also to keep people chill. Let's imagine they had not announced any of this until they do groundbreaking. We wouldn't know about Toy Story Land, Star Wars Land. We would only just be hearing about Avatar Land. And I think overall, you'd get a much more grumpy tone from people who are going, what is Disney doing? Why aren't they doing anything with the parks? Why is nothing happening? They closed all these rides in Hollywood Studios and now they're just doing nothing. It's just like they're shutting the park down. So they need to let people know, no, there are plans. These are our plans. We're going to do something with all of this. Trust us. It is, of course, a balance of how much do you tell versus how much do you keep a secret? How over the course of that timeline do you spread out that information so people don't get tired of it? And that is a problem for a public relations manager that I am glad I don't have to deal with. Our next question comes from Jordan Mann, who says, everything at Disney World basically has a story behind it. What story is your favorite? My favorites have to be the 2 water parks, Blizzard Beach and with the Freak Snowstorm, and Typhoon Lagoon's Big Storm. Great question. You're right. Everything at Disney has a story behind it. And that's one of the fantastic aspects of Imagineering, is even if the story isn't going to be apparent for people visiting that part of the park or that part of the property, it's there. And that logic, in my opinion, helps elevate the quality of that area in a way that might seem untangible to us or intangible to us. Are either of those words? Whatever. I don't know if it's my favorite story, but it's up there, is actually tied to one of your favorite stories, and it's the story of Pleasure Island. Now, in the 90s, Pleasure Island, this would actually be a good Did You Know Disney, maybe I'll do that next, was an island of clubs that was meant to sort of draw adult crowds for when the parks were closed, and hopefully Orlando residents who maybe didn't want to visit the parks but wanted to do some sort of nightlife stuff. And that island, even though it really on the outside just seemed like an island of clubs, nightclubs and comedy clubs and bars and stuff, actually had a story about it. And I believe the story goes that Merryweather Pleasure got caught in a storm and was left stranded with a whole bunch of other people on this island. And so they built up this community of nightclubs and things like that. And it's tied to one of yours because I believe the lore goes that the storm that she gets caught in that strands her and all those people on Pleasure Island is the same storm that hits Typhoon Lagoon and causes the boat to be stuck on top of the little mountain there. And so they're sort of tied together, which makes sense because they opened relatively close to each other. That's a great question for everybody watching, though. What is your favorite, story or lore of the parks? Maybe it's a ride, maybe it's something else. Let me know in the comments below. Our next question comes from the Gaming Pelican, who asks, how do you think the Animal Kingdom's new show, Rivers of Light, will match up against the other Walt Disney World night shows like Wishes or Iroh? I think it'll be very similar to Fantasmic and World of Color. Thanks. I agree with you. The end. No, I think it will be very similar to World of Color. The idea is they want to go very light or almost not at all with fireworks because you have all the animals there. You don't want to startle them, so you need to do something different. And having just seen World of Color at Disneyland for the first time, it was really cool. It was cool because it was just different technology and a different take on how to do a show. And that actually is really exciting to me. Like, I have a renewed interest in the parades and shows like that because it almost makes the fireworks over the castle seem almost, I don't want to say boring, but like they're just not as innovative anymore, right? That's been going on for a long time. So I'm really excited to see what they do with it. Obviously, it's going to have a different theme than something like World of Color, but it'll be cool to see, the World of Color equivalent in Walt Disney World because it is some really cool technology. Our next question comes from Denbro, who asks, do you think that they should build more resorts? And if so, what theming would you use for the new resort? Absolutely. It's funny. I was actually just looking into possibly booking one extra night in Disney World so I can extend my stay. And the rooms for off season are really booked up. It's pretty crazy. And it is getting more popular. And there's a question down the list that is sort of related to that. So yeah, I do think they should grow with that. They should add more attractions. As for what it should be themed on, that's tough. I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to do sci-fi stuff because I love sci-fi stuff. Or like 1950s stuff because I love that. But I don't know. What I would love to see, though, is I want to see more moderate resorts and maybe even what's the next level up called? Deluxe resorts. I know we've been adding more and more of the value, and it's important that they're there so it gives people a more affordable option when it comes to visiting Disney. But like, what was the last moderate resort that opened? Like, was it the Boardwalk? Which was a long time ago. I can't recall. When I think of new resorts, I'm thinking Pop Century, Art of Animation, resorts like that. They've rehashed some of the older ones, but I think as far as brand new ones, though, it's all been value level. So I would like to see something in the more moderate category. I don't know. You know what? Maybe something based on Tomorrowland, which is like retro sci-fi. I think that could be a lot of fun. I don't know where you'd put it or how you do it, but definitely need more space somewhere. As long as they keep that theming level up, you know, keep it up there and keep it high quality. Our next question comes from ZMan51801 off of Twitter, who asks, do you think Disney will buy another sports franchise after they sold the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim? Nope. I don't. I don't think they will, and I think the reason for that is they own ESPN. And I'm sure through legal loopholes they can legally own both a team and the network, but I think it would cause too much of an uproar and too much of a ruckus that, you know, there would be a conflict of interest that ESPN is, I think, arguably the leader when it comes to televised sports versus owning a sports team. They would be so scrutinized whenever ESPN covers that team because it's conflict of interest. It would benefit Disney for them to cover them favorably, and that could be a slippery slope. And I think at this point, Disney's doing so well with multimedia and with the theme parks and with interactive that I just don't think they feel like the trouble of procuring a sports team would be worth it financially. So I don't think they will. Sarah DeCusian asks, since you now have experienced Disneyland, what are some of the things that you wish Disney World had that Disneyland had and vice versa? I mean, I'm going to go over this more thoroughly in the Disneyland vlog, which should be coming out next week, but the short version of it, one, the quality of parade and fireworks shows in Disneyland blows Disney World out of the water. I'm sorry. The Main Street Electrical Parade, the Spectro Magic, they don't hold not even close to how good Paint the Night is. The fireworks were fantastic, and to be fair, it's because I would imagine Disneyland got a bigger budget because it's the 60th anniversary, but the quality is just so much better. I would love to see that move over to Disney World and have some sort of, maybe not the exact same parade and show, but something of that level of quality would be fantastic. Also, I think the quality of, and this is less likely to happen, but I think the type of people who visit Disney World, if it could be closer to Disneyland, would be awesome. By which I mean, it's not like the type of people who visit Disney World now are bad or anything. It's just that in Disneyland, for me, and maybe I'm wrong, but this was just my perception, it felt like half the people there were locals just spending their weekend there. And whenever I go to Disney World, it feels like the overwhelming majority are people from out of state coming for vacation, which makes a lot of sense. And I think the enthusiasm that the locals in Disneyland show just make it a much more lively park. And that could also be paired with the idea that it's a much more compact park, so everyone's closer to each other. And so that sort of excitement's infectious. And I think it's a little more laid back in Disney World. And so I would love to see some of that excitement over in Disney World. And as for vice versa, just the scale, I know that's financially not possible, but if Disney could just double the amount of land that they have over in California and spread everything out, that would be nice. Just find a middle ground between the two, maybe. Our next question comes from D Monokuma. Uh-oh, I've played Danganronpa. What books or websites about Disney do you read? So websites, I don't frequent that often. I will go to WDW Magic sometimes to get news, the latest news on Disney World and what's going on there. I do go to the Disney subreddit on Reddit a lot to see what's going on over there. As for books, hopefully I'll annotate to a video that I've made in the past where I show off some of my favorite books. But off the top of my head, I think the two that I would recommend the most, or the three that I would recommend the most, is Disney War, Reality Land, and then Walt Disney, An American Original. I think that's the one by Bob Thomas. So Walt, that's his biography, and it's very well done and gives you a good context of his life. Reality Land goes in depth into the building of Walt Disney World from the time when Walt was trying to find land and wanted to, figure out where to put this park, to, the Animal Kingdom, I think it covers. But most of it covers the initial stretch of building the Magic Kingdom and all those resorts. And it's really cool because it's not a rose-tinted look. It talks about a lot of the problems that they had building it when it came to like the construction unions and just the timetables that they locked themselves into and things like that. And then lastly, Disney War it's a big read. It's a heavy read. It's not like light reading, but it is a very lengthy book about basically Michael Eisner's time at the Walt Disney Company, from when him and Frank Wells stepped in the mid-'80s to when he was sort of ousted and replaced by Bob Iger. And it covers a little bit of the theme park industry, but for the most part, it's more of the entertainment stuff, the animation, the movies, the television. And it's a really great read because it gives you a really good look into what that corporate culture is like. And again, it's not Disney sanctioned, so it's not like, rose tinted and cheery and everything's great at Disney. It shows a lot of, it's called Disney War. It's about a lot of the infighting in the company, and it shows you how they got to certain decisions. It's very fascinating, and it's a book, two of those three books are books that I've actually read multiple times just because it's worth going back and revisiting it and picking up some of those stories. And then lastly, this week we have Beefish Alex Imagineering, who asks, while attending and scheduling plans for visiting the parks, it seems as if the Disney parks are getting societally more and more popular. What are your opinions? As a company, that's great, but as a guest, it impedes on the experience. So, we just talked about how booking resorts is getting tougher because Disney's doing a lot of stuff to draw people in on the off season. That said, I just came from Disneyland in the middle of the summer, which is a smaller park, more crowded park during the season which everyone's going to it, and it definitely felt crowded, but at the same time, I don't think it impeded on my experience at all. I enjoyed it either way, and I think Disney's trying to race to keep up with that. I think that's what we're seeing with FastPass Plus, which I might have my gripes about, but at least they're trying to do something so that it's not just long lines all the time. They're trying to do things with interactive cues, so even when you are stuck on a long line, it's not that bad of an experience. And I think it's through their ride design so that, people go through them more quickly. Obviously, yeah, it's a great problem for Disney to have because it's good for their business. And I think we're only going to see it get more popular as we see Star Wars Land open and Toy Story Land and Avatar Land. It's just a matter of Imagineering just staying on that cutting edge and trying to do whatever they can. I think FastPass Plus maybe right now isn't going to be... what am I trying to say here? I think FastPass Plus down the line is going to prove to be very helpful in solving this issue. We think of it as something for consumers where I could open my hotel room, or I could get into the park, or get a FastPass, or buy a drink with it. But you have to remember that these chips can be tracked. And that almost sounds like Big Brother 1984. But what they can do by tracking where everyone's moving is understand how people naturally navigate these parks, and then from there, optimize it, right? They can go, well, everybody around 3 o'clock really for some reason pushes to Tomorrowland. Can we get something going on in Adventureland to get some people to go over there? Can we redesign the pathways so that more people can move faster? Like, that's the sort of stuff that I think down the line will have a very big impact, yet it won't seem like it, right? It's one of those things where, if they're doing it right, we'll never notice at all. But I think it will, in the long run, have an impact. Anyway, great questions this week. If you have a question that you would like me to answer, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Feel free to let me know on Twitter. I'm at RobPlays. have a great week. Whatever you're doing this week, make the most of it. If you want to check out Epcot here on MC Magic, all you need is Minecraft for the PC or the Mac. It's really cool. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm Rob Plays That Game. And I am also on Periscope at Rob Plays. And the only reason I'm plugging those is because shortly I'll be going to Disney World for a trip, and I'll be doing a lot of periscoping and vlogging and things like that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time for the next Disney Q&A. Bye, everybody.